Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and this is episode 4 of my video cast, Politics 2100. And in this episode 4, I'm going to continue discussing the good cop, bad cop routine in American politics. As I hinted last time, the good cop, bad cop routine is something that people are usually not aware of happening. In fact, I don't know if anybody's formulated it analogously or similarly to how I've just formulated it. But anyway, I believe it's an underlying narrative and structure of American politics, and it's a type of political system that the Italian Marxist theorist and political leader Antonio Gramsci called hegemony. So it's a kind of system where the ruling elite isn't ruling by direct domination of the people, but instead it has created a cultural system where people agree to their own domination or agree to their own submission to the leadership of the political leadership or the economic leadership of the country. And a hegemonic system rather than a system of direct domination is more powerful or subtle than a system where the government, like a dictatorship, a government has to impose its will directly on the people, but instead in a hegemonic system, people share a common sense with the ruling elite, or they sort of share that common sense. Or there's a public common sense that is sustained by various institutions in society, and as I was describing in the last video, those institutions are things like the media or like political parties. So anyway, so in the good cop, bad cop routine in American politics, there's a certain kind of type of personal attitude toward things like what you want from life and how you believe you should be treated, or how you should treat yourself, and also what in terms of your work, or in terms whether you will be someone who will need to be forced to work, whether you or whether you will do so gladly, and so it's kind of to talk about the good cop, bad cop routine. It can get a little depressing, because we're exposing some fundamental assumptions that we all have about society. And anyway, I wrote a piece that's called "We Temporarily Embarrassed Millionaires and U.S. Politicians' Good Cop, Bad Cop Routine." This is the second part of the first post where I introduced the concept of the good cop, bad cop routine. And I used that title because I was referring to the phrase that John Steinbeck used to explain why the United States doesn't have a socialist movement, a strong socialist movement, or and he said, or he may not have formulated this phrase, but it's attributed to him, that you people in the U.S. think of themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires rather than a working class. So, or largely working people, or poor, struggling small business people, and so people assume, or part of the American dream, or the American mythology, is that we all could luck out at any time and become very wealthy, and we're always, we're obsessed with games of chance. We have a fairly robust gambling industry, among other things, though it's not exclusive to the United States, the gambling or an interest in gambling. But anyway, we tend to, the society, our whole society is structured around a sort of a casino structure, or even a Ponzi scheme a structure, where people are hoping that they will become the wealthiest, the most successful, and it means not planning for some of the inevitabilities of life, because you think, well, it's going to be taken care of, or I hope I will be taken care of by fortune or by the amazing genius that I somehow have inside me, if only I could bring it out and express it in some way or another. So the idea, the reason why I brought these two ideas together is that what the good cop, bad cop routine is constantly telling the American people and constantly telling us is that we don't really deserve, or we don't really need, or either deserve, need, it's not communicated explicitly, so I'm putting words on actions by leaders, but anyway, that we cannot, quote unquote, afford to provide basic needs or services to ordinary people, that we need to fight over them, compete for them on markets, and prove our worth, our value in these markets. And so only the strong will survive. So it's essentially a survival of the fittest, social Darwinian message, even though it's very hidden. It's not directly expressed in the good cop, bad cop politics. So what happens is that supposedly the Democrats are the good cops, supposedly, with their quote unquote unrealistic plans for helping people in some form or other, but then they are disciplined by the bad cops representing, let's call it the reality principle. That's a psychoanalytic term, but it doesn't have to be used in that context, but that they are somehow the real brass tacks, means that you people don't really deserve these things, we can't really afford them, and it's really only in effect the successful and wealthy that already have had good fortune, that they are the ones that will really be deserving of any benefits or any windfalls that happen because of either government policy or because of market fluctuations, or anything that we are constantly in a society that where both might is right. I mean, that's a little more of a political concept, but also just wealth is right. So in other words, if you're already wealthy, that means you deserved it and you deserve more. So there is I mean, this is something that's been disputed within U.S. history and U.S. politics. There's been populist movements and labor movements that have disputed this formulation, but it has been very, very strong in our country, and that's partly why Steinbeck used that temporarily embarrassed millionaires idea. So if one is a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, one doesn't press government to provide basic services. One doesn't elect politicians or that are serious about providing those things via government. And so anyway, so the constant drama of the good cop, bad cop routine hides this message, but it sends the message, but it hides the message in this drama. So you don't really focus on it. You focus on just, well, there are bad Republicans and there are sort of good Democrats that are always ineffectual and always never able to really deliver. Not say never. Again, I don't want to be. They deliver very thin and very fragile benefits that are shot through with compromises with very wealthy interests, like, for instance, the Obamacare, which is basically a handout or to the health insurance industry, while providing more people with the very expensive private insurance that our system creates. So if and this is I ended the last video, and I'm putting it out there here in this video. If people are recognizing, and also another element, by the way, of this, so another painful aspect or that we would need to confront if we confront that the politicians are playing this good cop, bad cop routine, is that we are being fooled. Okay, so this is something that it's essentially fraud. Okay, so political fraud that's being committed, or, I mean, there's a lot of that term is being bandied around a lot and used by political actors who I don't support, that are saying you never engage with the left portion of the Democratic Party, you never engage with that it's all a sham, and it's not far from the truth, but there are still elements in the Democratic Party, and that have just been also the political work of the last 6-7 years has yielded let's say a beachhead within the Democratic Party, where some progressive ideas and politics can be enacted, not enough, and so there are people who say, well, those people are frauds because they're part of the fraudulent Democratic Party, and it's not entirely fraudulent, and also it's a terrain of struggle. So I look at that as that there's a place where progressives can fight in that party. It's not a big place. It's not a comfortable place. It's not a place that's where you get the red carpet rolled out for you. But there are, unfortunately, few alternatives that are viable currently in our system for people who are trying to improve the welfare of the American people. So, but anyway, but it's what I was trying to get at with the being fooled or being tricked, maybe is a better. I think that the politicians involved, some of the politicians involved, are just simply very cynical, and therefore it could be considered fraudsters. But that word evokes. It invites cynicism, and I'm not. I'm trying. This is a concept where I'm trying to get people engaged with revealing what's going on and talking about the slight differences. There are slight differences between these, or in some areas substantial differences between these two parties, but they do play this game, okay? And the game is also, as I mentioned in the last video, it's actually a suicidal game for the Democratic Party to continue playing in the good cop, bad cop routine. So they are actually, especially with the neo-fascist Republican Party. So, because the neo-fascist Republican Party is working on ending democracy, okay, and diminishing or making totally redundant the role of the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic Party thinks of itself as being very smart in some ways. So, or the leadership, the current leadership. But so anyway, and there's also, I think, another painful, and I will probably need to create another video on this, to recognize that this is happening and that there's this collusion between these two parties that have different roles. Okay, they're not doing exactly the same thing, but they do operate together in the service of a, not entirely hidden, but as sort of the payers, the financial elite and the corporate elite, but essentially emergent oligarchy, you can call them. And but anyway, so many of us have sentimental attachments to either particularly who are, let's say, liberal or Democratic voters have attachments to various figures within the Democratic Party, and sometimes we are even, I mean, I admit to, I support many of the members of the squad, and and Bernie Sanders and so forth and so on, and I even occasionally have a good word or a good view of some of the other non-politicians outside of that small group, where I think that they're doing something that is worthwhile. Okay, so but that doesn't mean I endorse everything they do, and or that I don't have a critical view of them as well. And so it requires subtlety and nuance and a bunch of different things that some people in the political world do not do very well. So, but people have these attachments to these figures. Like, for instance, let's say Joe Biden. Let's use Joe Biden as an example. So, in contrast to Donald Trump, Joe Biden appears to be a nice guy. He appears to be more caring than Donald Trump. Okay, and he also made quite a theater during 2020 election campaign, and also even afterward, of being such a caring person or such a good person or such a moral, ethical person. And I find some of it very unconvincing from my perspective, what he does. But there are some people who feel attachment to that, and they feel like their political leaders, their party, I think it's a partisan thing more than, I mean, you can talk about Biden per se, but it's for instance, what was attached to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, I'm similarly, I think she was much better than Trump in the 2016 election, but she was a terrible candidate, and it wasn't a great idea to do a coronation of her by the Democratic Party. But anyway, so there are many people who have attachments to these figures, and they think these figures are talismans, or whatever, how you say the plural, talisman. Anyway, so they act as good luck charms, or whatever you want to call them, but they are fetishes, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, they have attachment to them, and I think they project onto them some of their own needs and so forth and so on, or at least they think of them as protectors of them. And to some degree, since they're the political leaders, they have power, more power than almost everyone else in the United States, at least political power. They could be protectors, and they have the potential to be protectors of. So there is some deep emotional attachments that we have to at least their roles, if not those actual individuals. So anyway, so to round this out, so to be recognized that they are playing a good cop, in other words, they're playing a role where they have primary loyalty to the mega donors and not to you, and you recognize that you are a far, far, far second fiddle to very, very powerful people. You, the voter, I'm saying, or you, the supporter, and that they are manipulating you and using you and manipulating your hopes and dreams, it can be very, some people will reject that and say, you know, no, those are good people. I'm the bad person. I'm the messenger. I'm the bad person for telling you about this, or not telling, I mean, you know, creating a framework where they will say, I am one of these people that I referred to earlier, who are cynics, who say there's no difference between these two parties. And I'm not saying that. But they are playing, when it comes to the donor class, they play a very, their roles are very similar. You look at their voting records, you look at, you know, the actual action they take rather than their rhetoric. Unfortunately, it's very for most, outside of the group of Democrats that are funded, and there's maybe a few exceptional other people who are funded by small donations, who do not take corporate PAC money, who are, you know, squad and squad adjacent, whatever you want to call that, the group outside that group is pretty corrupt, and but at the same time, the Democrats are still in this era of a neo-fascist takeover, are still the party that has some potential to be called on their pretensions to be good cop, and that's where I think revealing this good cop, bad cop routine is helpful. They need to be called saying, you said that you're a good cop, so you have to be actual good cops rather than fake good cops. Or, I mean, the word cop is unfortunate. And also, I mean, there's another element to this, which I don't want to get into in this video because it's getting too long, but about the way in which our needs or our wishes are being policed, and I touch on it in the post that I'm going to link in the description box. In any case, so I hope you know, with this video and combined with the previous episode 3, I hope that it is something that, you know, provokes some thought. And if you have some comments and, you know, you disagree, you think this is, you know, either I'm dismissing all politicians as, you know, charlatans or whatever, and, you know, I'm not going that far, but I'm saying that I'm saying there's certainly an element of deception and of dual loyalties, at least. And those dual loyalties, unfortunately, the voters are, in our current system, are far less important than for most politicians than the donor class and lobbyist groups. So in any case, so if you like this video, please like it and comment, and please subscribe to this channel. And there will be more to come on these topics, and also other diverse topics in the area of politics. So look forward to seeing you next time.